Sallu ala al-Habib sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Dear viewers of social media, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. We are back again, once again, with our another program, Health is Wealth. And the topic today is sleep problems in children. Now, I am a parent myself, alhamdulillah. I've got a son and a daughter who are 7 and 10 years of age. And clearly, I have experienced practical difficulties with sleep issues in children. And many of you who are parents, grandparents, they will agree with me that it is a very common issue. And especially in this day and age, when it is lockdown and everything is upside down in a household as well. Children are not going to school. Many of us are actually on furlough. We are sitting at home, and clearly this is causing lots of challenges, especially when it comes to our own sleep and the sleep of our children. So inshallah, in today's topic, we will try to look at the sleep problems in children. What I will try to do is I will try to take it stepwise from young age, up from 6 months onwards, up until teenage years. Now, if I can cover what I'm supposed to cover today, then in the next episode, we will talk about sleep problems in adults. That's a completely separate topic areas. But if I cannot cover what I'm supposed to cover today, then in the second episode, we'll carry on with sleep problems in children. And then we'll have to do a third episode on sleep problems in adults. But we will cover sleep problems. Now, I'm today your host, and I'm today, a guest as well. So I'll be asking questions to myself, and I will be answering them. Sleep difficulties. Which specialty is it? Is it medical specialty? Is it psychiatric problem? Most of the time, if there are any medical problems, then generally parents know. They go to the doctor. Once the medical problems sorted out, and if the sleep was being affected by that medical problem, then obviously it's all well and good. But generally speaking, what happens is that there are some psychological issues or behavioral issues where parents need a lot of support and training from a psychological point of view, and from how to manage the behavior of the children, which is where the sleep issues, sleep difficulties, they fall within the domains of what we call as a mental health branch of the medicine. And also more so with adults, if the sleep is not adequate, then it can cause mental health problems as well. And sometimes with children, it can cause behavior difficulties when they're not sleeping properly. Okay, so that's the sort of offset of the topic today. And just like always, alhamdulillah, do like our Fazan Medina Facebook page. We come up with lots of silsilas on daily basis during the lockdown. We've got Darse Quran, we've got Tajweed class, we've got Munajat, Iftar. At the time of Iftar, we make dua as well. I'm your host every day from 20 to 5 for about half an hour or so with a number of different programs. One of them is Health is Wealth, which is every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And then I also talk about our Fazan Medina and Life of a Scholar, and other also services of Dawat Islami. So if you have any questions about sleep problems with your children today, then you can by no means ask me the question, and hopefully I will try to cover it. So first of all, let's talk about, let me just do some adjustments, because it's quite a psychological impact to have a nice background so that people do see you. I've got a computer on my other side as well, so sometimes I'll be looking at it if some of you are commenting. So I may have to obviously add that to this as well. So let's go off with our sleep problems with children. Before I actually go into the problems, we first of all need to understand what is normal for children, and what normal things we need to do to help someone go to sleep. Now, when we talk about children, Obviously, children are from the age of 1 day up until the age of 18. So clearly, that's a huge sort of time scale, a huge variation. So the normal for everyone is different. A newborn, where they are sleeping most of the time up until 3 months, so you can't have a routine with them. You basically, your mother, then for the first 3 months of the child, they actually adjust their pattern to the sleeping pattern of the child. Okay. So every now and then they need feeding, and there's the feeding, as the mothers will now, is basically more of a sort of every few hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, and then as they begin to age, then slowly and slowly, there is at night time there's a greater time between the feeds. So a child up until the 6 months of age, don't expect them not to wake up during the night for a feed. Okay. So up until the age of 6 months, the child could be waking up once or twice or 3 times. Obviously, the closer they are to the 6 month age, the less they will be waking. Once they are about the 6 months of age, then usually a child can sleep throughout the night without the need for a feed for about 8 hours or so, 8 to 10 hours. Every child is different, but I'm just giving you a rough estimate. However, one mistake can be made sometimes with the mother, by the mothers, those who are feeding the child themselves, breastfeeding. What happens is the children, from a psychological point of view, they can make associations even from a very young age. So what happens is sometimes the mothers, they may breastfeed when they are going to sleep as well, at the time of sleeping. Or, clearly, you can't feed the child whilst they're lying flat. The child's head has to be above. Otherwise, there is an issue with the choking. But what happens is that the mothers, when they go to the bed themselves and they breastfeed the child goes to sleep, they put the child in the cot, and then they go to sleep. And if the child wakes up during the night, the child has this association that even if they're not hungry, they may associate breastfeeding with sleeping. Okay. So they may cry for a feed even though they're not hungry. Why? Because the child's learned this association that I go to sleep when I'm feeding. So they will actually they will cry for a feed when they don't actually need it. Why? Because the mother timed the breastfeeding with their sleep pattern. So mothers need to be careful that do that about 10 minutes before. So the child's still awake, you finish the feed, the child's finished the feed, they've not gone to sleep as yet, but then in the next few minutes you put them to sleep. So hopefully with that you can resolve lots of problems. Okay. Now, once the child is 6 months, then you can introduce a routine, especially for the night time. And what you could do, clearly with very young children, you may be asking the question, how can I establish a routine with a young child? Now, clearly, you can't tell them what time it is, and it is 9 o'clock, and they need to go to sleep. They would have no understanding of time whatsoever. So you need to adopt certain behaviors which actually alert the child that it is time to go to sleep. So, for example, usually if you bathe the child at night, give them a bath at night, okay, change their nappy and put them into those comfy night clothes, sleeping clothes, that can actually give an association to the child that, okay, it is time for me to sleep. So basically, I'll give you an example here. I mean, just to demonstrate this. Those of us who live in the villages, if we compare a city child who wears a nappy, and here in UK, it's around 3 years, that you can't expect a child before 3 years to actually be potty trained. And not to wear a nappy. But if you go into villages in Pakistan, you will see that a child who is 1 year of age, they are actually potty trained, or a year and a half, certainly well in advance compared to our children here. Now, is there something extraordinary? Is there anything, something amazing? I don't think that is amazing. What happens is that many of us who lived in the villages and they understand the village life is that from a very young age, from like 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, or a year old child, the mothers, what they try to do is they actually take the child and they make a sound like, and they try to associate that sound with the obviously potty, with the nappy, with the obviously doing the wee wee or doing the poo. The child makes an association, and then what the mother does is they actually pick up specific times to do it. And then this inadvertently, from a psychological point of view, this actually lets the child know that, oh, when I hear that sound, then I need to do wee wee. And surprisingly, these mothers get successful after a few attempts. And then they associate the timings and the space with that, and the child will go to that particular space in that particular time, and then they will become independent. So what I'm trying to say here is that think of that you can adopt certain behaviors, giving basically giving a bath to a child just before their bedtime, changing their nappy, and then putting them into those comfy clothes, giving them a hug and a kiss, even from a very young age, dimming the light. And these are more than enough signals for a child, even a 6 months old child or a year old child, to understand that now they basically will go to sleep, that this is something happens, and then I feel cozy and then go to sleep. Now, similarly, the older the child is, then in terms of establishing a routine, I'm talking about the routine first, because most of the sleep problems happen because the routine is not there, or the routine is not enforced by the parents. And then this causes problems. So if you understand the routine concept, then inshallah, you'll be able to solve many of the sleep problems in the children. So how can you establish a routine with the other children who is probably 2 years old or 3 years old and so forth? What you can do with them is again similar, that they may have an understanding of time. They say when it is 9 o'clock, then okay, we're going to shut down, we're going to close the TV, all the screen time is finished. We will brush the teeth, we'll put the sleeping clothes on, we will dim the lights, and it's the story time. And once the story finishes, you give them a hug, you give them a kiss, and you make them cozy in their bed, and off they go to sleep. Try that for a few weeks. Even a young child, a year and a half, 2 years old, you give them these cues from the environmental point of view, and you establish sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene means that the lights are switched off, okay, the noise is to a minimum, and the bedroom is comfortable. If it's winter, it shouldn't be too cold. If it's summer, it shouldn't be too hot. So the temperature has to be ambient. Temperature, light, noise. Control these, establish a routine. And one important aspect of the routine is switching off period. The child, from a mental point of view, needs to be ready to go to sleep. So if they are fully active and you are having a discussion with them, they are playing a game, and out of a sudden you want to say to them, okay, off you go, it's sleep time, you're fighting a losing battle. You will not be able to put that child to sleep because their mind is too active at the moment. So you need to give them that half an hour cue. The 9 o'clock, we are finishing our activities. We will, finish with our toiletries. We'll do our brush. We'll put our sleeping clothes on, and we will obviously read a story, and then it will be a hug and a kiss on every day. Inshallah, this will be a routine established, very good for your child. Dim the light, make sure the temperature is right, and there is no noise. And the children also need to know that the parents are sleeping as well. If the parents are not sleeping, then what happens is that in the early stages at least, what until the routine is established, then the parents will find that their child remains awake. It's a bit like nowadays, like lockdown situation. Now, because I'm awake and my wife is awake, there's no way these children are going to go to sleep. Why? Because they don't have to school. They don't have to go to school. So we'll have to establish a slightly different routine in the lockdown. And I have to admit, I mean, rather than my children sleeping at 9 o'clock, nowadays we do the sahri, and then we all sleep obviously at around 3 o'clock or after the sahri time, whatever it is. So routine is extremely important, and the environment is extremely important. And once we establish this routine, there are a number of different ways to establish a routine. You as a parent know your child the best, what works best for them and what not. So this is about establishing the routine, and then you have set time to wake them up as well. Okay. Generally speaking, once the child is of school age, they start going to the nursery. They don't need to sleep during the day. So don't let them sleep during the day. Don't let them sleep during the evening either. If they sleep during the day, sleep during the evening, once they are 4 year plus, yes, prior to 4 year old, children do tend to get tired and they do sleep during the evening, but because they need longer sleep and they do sleep for longer, then what happens is that clearly, uh, uh, sleeping during the taking a nap during the afternoon is not a problem for young children less than 4 years of age. But once they are 4 year above, then don't let them sleep during the evening. Now, clearly, you got to obviously look at it. If it's causing problem, then clearly you don't. First thing you need to do is stop them from napping in the evening or late afternoon. Now, if we establish, and hopefully then what happens is that then they will establish a sleep routine. Now then comes some other problems, some issues, as a result of which the child may begin to experience sleep problem. So sleep problem are two things. Okay, either they find it difficult to go to sleep and it takes them longer for whatever reason, or the child is okay to go to sleep, but then during the night they wake up. Okay. So we'll try to tackle this. Let's look at it first of all, the child finding it difficult to go to sleep. This could be for a number of reasons. The common one is, now, although there's a lot of variation from a cultural point of view as well, but generally in UK, up until 6 months, the child sleeps with the parents, and that's most practical. The cot is in the parents' room, the mothers, especially if they're breastfeeding, and that's the more practical approach. Okay, and then around 6 months, on average, the child goes into the different room. Now, however old the child is, when you actually separate their bedroom, they are going to experience that separation anxiety. The child who was with the mother and sleeping with the mother, and now you separate them from the mother. It's a new room, it's a new place, it's different environment. The child is going to become anxious. So the child will cry and not go to sleep, or if they go to sleep, then they will wake up during the night crying. Either they'll come to the parents' room, or if they're still young, they'll be crying in their cot. So this is separation anxiety, and what happens is within a week or two, this will hopefully settle. However, you do need to do few things to make sure that the child does not experience separation anxiety, or if they do experience separation anxiety, then they can obviously it is resolved quickly. So what you do need to do is, for example, you will sit with the child, you will tell them a story. Sometimes you can sing them a lullaby. Lori sunana jisko kehte hain. Grandmothers were great at it. Nani, dadi. हमारे ज़माने में बच्चों को लोरी सुनाई जाती थी. You used to sing them a lullaby. And that lullaby is like what they do is music these days. Well, clearly from Islamic teachings, we should not give toys of music to children. And I can tell you from a psychological point of view, those toys who talk or have got noise, whether it's musical or others, it actually slows down the language development of the child. The children develop their language very fast if you actually speak to them one to one. And I have got research, clearly, this is my profession. You go into Asian countries or other cultures where parents, grandparents, they are talking to the child all the time. That child develops language skills much quicker than someone who is on his own, playing with the toys, speaking to the toys, and so on and so forth. Because the children need to learn. So, singing a lullaby, as long as it is allowed and doesn't have any sort of like negative meanings and so forth, then singing a lullaby can actually comfort the child. Then what you tell, when you do what you do to the child is that you actually give them a cuddle, give them a kiss, hug them and give them a kiss, go out, after a few minutes come back in again, give them a hug and a kiss. And then what happens is do something in the room for a few minutes and then give them a hug and a kiss, go out and again come back in after a few minutes to give them a hug and a kiss. Now you may be saying that am I mad? You're asking me to give them a hug and a kiss every few minutes. But this is the practice. What your child's getting used to is that I'm getting a hug and a kiss, and it will actually lower their anxiety. And then now that the parents coming in and going out, okay, and you only need to do this in the early stages, in the initial few days, week or so, and then their mind gets used to it that I'm not on my own. Although physically my parent is not there sleeping with me, but they are present. And then the child will relax and he will go to sleep. Once they're gone to sleep, then that's it, end of story. So a first week or two, to address the separation anxiety, you may need to do these things, which may take just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, and then gradually it will reduce. And usually within a week or two, the separation anxiety in this way will actually disappear and your child will settle down to the bed. Now, one thing what happens is that sometimes children experience nightmares, and that's a very natural part and parcel. And majority of the time, this is nothing to worry about. That your child experiences a nightmare, they are screaming or they're crying or they come to you for a comfort. What is important is you take them back to their room if they're coming to you. And if they're crying, then obviously you will go to them and just try to reassure them, and basically don't spend too much time. Because what happens is that if the child knows that you come there and you give them reassurance and you end up spending too much time, then again the child's brain could recondition, or it could condition itself that I need my parents to go to help me to go to sleep. So do adopt a balanced approach. Okay, if they come to you crying because they've had a nightmare, just reassure them, go and put them into bed and say, okay, you're going to be okay. Sometimes you do need to put the light on have a dim light in the room, so the child will obviously feel less anxious and they'll go to sleep. But usually nightmares on its own is not a problem. However, in this day and age, nightmares could be because of a reason. And the reason is all these games, cartoons, internet, even young children, 2 year, 1 year, they're using mobile phone. And what happens is what they see, what happens in the games. If the games are violent, they see these violent scenes where people are being killed, or they are on the internet or Facebook, no one's monitoring them. And they're seeing all this stuff which is anxiety provoking, which is fear provoking, then clearly that's what's going to be running in their mind. And especially if they're using these things just before going to sleep, which is why, as doctors, our recommendation is that at least 1 to 2 hours before bedtime, children should not have any screen time whatsoever. Okay, this is the time for the parents to engage with them, control what information your child is receiving before bedtime, control the images and the videos that your child is watching, put a stop to them before bedtime. And even if they're watching these things during the daytime, when they are going to have nightmares. So nightmares in that sense could be one reason, could be the imagery and the videos that they're watching on the social media. Sometimes what happens is the children, when they go to school, they could experience bullying. Okay, so someone 5-year old, 6-year old, 7-year old, when this bullying happens at school, then they become anxious and anxiety takes in. They are afraid of going to sleep because they may be experiencing nightmares and so on and so forth. They are too much worried about waking up in the morning and going back to the school again, and experiencing bullying. So you need to be in good touch with your child's feelings and emotions and need to understand what's going on in their life. Okay, so if they were established into a routine and then they start experiencing nightmare and sleep becomes a problem now, okay, yes, hopefully most of the time it wouldn't be anything to worry about, but the important things are that you need to identify, is there a cause, either in the terms of images from the social media or violent content from the games and so forth, or problems at school and so forth. Okay, now that's one other very common problem with children in terms of sleep is fear of dark. Okay, child is afraid of going to the bedroom. Why? Because it's dark. They may ask us to keep a light on. No, that can be perfectly natural for majority of the children. And if with a dim light in the room or a light in the hallway helps them to settle down in the bed and they go to sleep, absolutely no problem whatsoever. But if obviously it is so have a dim light and hopefully that will resolve the problem. Those a lot of these are available from the market. So uh, but again, you will only find out if your child is afraid of dark is if you listen to your child. So be in touch with the feelings and emotions of obviously your child. One other problem, very common and very easy to resolve, is sometimes the children could be hungry during the night. It's possible that they've eaten early on. Their tea time was early around 6. And after that, they were doing a lot of activity. Okay. Or they were actively engaged in watching something on the TV because brain activity in itself takes a lot of energy as well. So if you're reading, that is something that actually consumes your energy. If you are playing a game, then that is something that consumes your energy because your brain cells are active. So if after the tea time, the child is doing a lot of activity, then they may be hungry during the night. So they may wake up as a result of that, but not understand that what is the problem. Or sometimes they will tell the parents that they are hungry. So if they're hungry, the easy thing is that try to sort out the routine of eating. Make sure the child doesn't do too much physical activity after eating. And if for some reason it is the case, then they sometimes children are growing and they may need sort of snack. So do give them a snack like a cereal, Weetabix in milk and so forth. But make sure that obviously your child brushes your teeth before going to sleep. One other problem is that I would like to mention, or there are actually two problems combined together. Uh, there's something called night terrors and sleepwalking. From a medico psychological point of view, both of these problems, sleepwalking or night terrors, they are part of the same spectrum. I don't want to go into the medical details of this, but what happens is that some parents, they identify that the child doesn't have any problem going to sleep, but around 2 hours, just between an hour and a half or 2 hours after they've gone to sleep, and that time period is usually fixed, around 2 hours, the child suddenly, starts crying. The child is sitting with the eyes open, very anxious, very afraid, scared, and they're just screaming. The parent goes, looks at them, and basically the child's absolutely inconsolable. You speak to them, the child doesn't answer. The child doesn't answer because that child's still asleep. You may be surprised, but even when the child is doing the sleepwalking, the child's still asleep. They may have their eyes open, okay, but they're asleep. Now, sleepwalking, obviously, I got to from a safety point of view. If your child does have sleepwalking, then clearly you need to make sure that you've got staircase that they don't end up falling down the stairs and so forth. And also the locks on the windows are actually, you have a lock and the key is separate, so that they don't end up opening the lock and falling outside. That's very important. Both of these problems, they actually do go away most of the time. It's nothing to do with, it's completely separate from nightmares. The good thing about this is, because the child does not wake up, the child has no recollection of this. So from a psychological point of view, there is no impact on the child, absolutely no impact whatsoever. And what happens is, this night terror or sleepwalking, it will last for a few minutes, and then the child will be, obviously this episode will finish. And that's completely normal. There isn't anything that you need to do other than the parents consoling themselves that it is nothing to worry about. However, yes, you can do one thing when it is the time for night terrors. As I said, that night terrors happen roughly about 2 hours after the child has gone to sleep. So let's say that your child goes to sleep at 9 o'clock, and around 11 o'clock is when they will have a night terror. You can keep a diary of it. Once you keep a diary that they woke up this night at this time, okay, maybe a few minutes plus minus, you will have an idea of that. Let's say that your child has a night terror at 11. If the child has a night terror at 11, what you can do is, it's actually a problem with the sleep cycle. You can disrupt that sleep cycle. How? At 20 to 11, I'm saying 20 to 11 because your child is having a night terror at 11 o'clock. But whatever time your child has a night terror, 20 minutes before that, go wake up your child. You'll say, what is that? Wake up your child just for a minute or two. They are awake, and you obviously uh, give them a hug and a kiss and make sure they are awake, and then let them go to sleep. They will go to sleep. And you will notice that hopefully with this, by doing this, the night terrors will go away. Now, I have only been able to cover half of the sleep problems I was going to discuss, and the time is already 32 minutes of this session. So I would like to end it here today. Sleep problems in children. Inshallah, on Friday, we'll carry on with sleep problems in children, and the focus will be more on sort of like some medical problems that could be the cause of sleep difficulties, and also teenage sleep problems. So in the next sleep problems in children, we'll talk about some medical problems that can cause sleep issues, and also the teenage difficulties in terms of sleeping and waking up. So that will be very interesting. So inshallah, I'll see you next tomorrow. Inshallah, tomorrow is Thursday, and I'll bring something for you interesting, and then Friday I'll see you again with sleep difficulties. And inshallah, do like and share our Fazan Medina Facebook page. We bring a variety of shows, and alhamdulillah, we try to obviously give you a lot of knowledge from religious point of view, from family life point of view, and also from many other domains of your personality development and how to be a better parent as well. May Allah give us all the ability to act upon what we have listened to and to convey to others as well. Ameen bijahi Nabil Ameen. Sallu ala al-Habib. Sallallahu ta'ala ala Muhammad. Sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam.